Well, good morning, everybody. Glad to see you all here. And my name is Nate. I'm the lead pastor here at Restoration Church. And we have a guest speaker today who I'll introduce in a moment. Something that happened to me this week that hopefully is, will never happen to you. But Dave Belanger was at my house. He was helping me on a couple of different projects. And so we ripped up this floor in our dining room. And it just smelled terrible. We've only owned the house, I think, for 5 months. And so one project at a time. So we tried mopping the floor, and it made no difference. And so I just got bleach, and I dumped bleach over the floor. And, I'm going to kill whatever's dead there in the floor. And as I was pouring the bleach on the floor, I'm like, wow. This bleach is responding to the floor like hydrogen peroxide, like it's bubbling, and I didn't think anything of it. And so I'm mopping the floor, and then all of a sudden, Dave was on the other side of the room. I'm like, oh, something's not right. And then I can't see and I can't breathe, and I'm like, get out, get out. And so we get out of the house, and my eyes are watering, and we are hacking like a Maine Coon cat with a live rat in its throat. I mean, we were just coughing and coughing, and it was absolutely terrible. So something on the floor caused this reaction, which filled my house with toxic fumes. And so that was the kids came home from school, and I'm like, I almost died today, children, so appreciate me. But I don't know what, if you've never been to church before and you're here this morning, and hopefully you're not feeling like I felt in my dining room, like, get me out of here. We hope, and what we want you to do is to be comfortable, and for your time at Restoration Church, for it to be a place for you to investigate Jesus, for you to find out about Jesus, and honestly, we hope you'll make a decision in your life to follow Jesus. And at the end of the service, there'll be an opportunity for you to make that decision. And there's no pressure. There's no pressure from us. Jeremy talked about when he made that decision in his life in 2009. I made that decision in my life when I was 5 years old. And many of the people in the room here made that decision for themselves at some point. And you're not the only person in the room who hasn't yet made that decision. There are other people here, some have been coming for months, trying to figure it out. They want to believe, they want to follow Jesus, but they're still skeptical. And that's what our series is that we're starting today, and that's why we brought Alicia Wood to be here and speak this morning. We're not afraid maybe that you are skeptical of us, or you're skeptical of the Bible or about Jesus. And we want to hopefully try to answer some of those questions for you in the next few weeks, and maybe answer those questions for you today, and just give you an opportunity to experience what we've experienced. So our speaker this morning is Alicia Wood, who a few of us have heard because she spoke at Youth Convention, an event we bring our teenagers to every April. And she is one of the speakers for Ravi Zacharias Ministries International, and you may have heard his name. And so she's part of that organization. And so will you please give her a big welcome to Restoration Church.
Good morning. It is really good to be back in the North. I have always lived in the North all of my life, up until about, 6 hours ago or so. I just recently I left on Wednesday and did the drive to Atlanta, and kind of briefly unpacked yesterday and got on a plane and flew back up to you because that was about all the South I could handle. Joking, I'm going back today, but it's funny because I've only been there a short amount of time, and there's already, hurricane warnings and tornado watches and a tiger that's running loose, which they were able to sadly capture and kill. But I'm like, I just don't understand. You guys complain about our snow. We don't have that, okay? We don't have that. And snow is a snow day. You stay at home. Yes, So anyways, it's always just enjoyable to be back up here. And I will look forward to any opportunity I get to come back this way. But I'm really happy to have the opportunity to share with you a topic that I think is probably something, a question, why Christianity? A question that maybe some of you have asked yourselves. I get the pleasure of traveling and speaking to a lot of different people who have a belief in Christianity or not Christianity, or don't even have a belief at all, are not sure, whatever. People have a range of different perspectives. And it's really an honor and it's a privilege because I get to hear so many different ways in which people approach why they believe what they believe. And so today what I want to do is give you the opportunity to hear why I think Christianity versus a breadth of different rules and regulations, or even other different religions, or whatever it may be. And so I want to talk to you a little bit today, not just about my reasons for Christianity, but before we even get there, I have to establish for you a reason why I believe that there is even a God at all. Because the reality is there's a lot of belief systems that will acknowledge that there is a God. That's not something special to Christianity. But if we're going to find out why is it you choose to believe in religion, it's why do you even think that there's something there in the first place? And so my journey really is going to take you a little bit over, I'm going to take you a little bit over the course of my life. And my journey really starts when I was a kid. I grew up in church, and I knew a lot about church. And I went to Sunday school and youth groups and all these different kind of things. And if you were to ask me when I was a kid, Alicia, why Christianity? I would say, well, I've asked my mother how we got here, and she says God made us. And you ask your parents, why is the sky blue? And God made it blue. And that works when you're 8, and when you're 9, and when you're 10. It was simple. It made sense of the world around me. But then I got older, as we often do, and I entered into college. And that's when things got a little bit more interesting. Because now, these little answers that I was given as a kid weren't necessarily answering the questions I was now asking as an adult. And I really began to question. I really began to wonder if there is anything to this whole Christianity thing at all. If there's any validity to it, if I can trust it. I began to question the authority of the Bible or the credibility of the Bible. And I remember just being in college and being like, there's just no God. There's no God. There's no way that any of this is true. And going through this intense period of doubting and questioning. But at the same time, I had to reflect over my life. And I knew that there were times in my life when I had prayed things that nobody knew about. And those prayer requests were answered in very specific ways. Not generally, but very specific. And so I was like, okay, Alicia, if Christianity isn't true, then fine. But you were engaging with something. So something else might be out there. And that was enough to kind of get me back on the track to saying, maybe I will consider Christianity again, or begin looking at belief and religion again to say, maybe there is an actual being out there. And I just may need to kind of do a little bit more work. And spoiler alert, I became a Christian. But basically, if you were to ask me as a college student, Alicia, why are you a Christian? Or why Christianity? I would say, you know what? I can't explain my life experiences any other way. There's just no other way to explain these particular things that have happened to me. So when we look at this question of why Christianity, I don't know if it's a question you've asked yourself. Maybe you are a Christian, maybe you're not. But then ask yourself why, atheism, or why Islam, or why Judaism, or whatever the particular belief is. Ask yourself this, just put your particular situation in place of that word. But I think this is a question we all have to ask ourselves. We need to know why we believe what we believe. It's important. You don't believe something because somebody hands you a book. You don't believe something because a teacher tells you it. Why do you think you believe what you believe in? Does it answer the big fundamental questions that you are asking about life? And of course, the big one, the foundational one that philosophers have been asking for centuries is, how did we get here? How is it there's something rather than nothing? The philosopher Keith Ward says this. He says, to the majority of those who reflected deeply and written about the origin and nature of the universe, it has seemed that it points beyond itself to a source which is non-physical and of great intelligence and power. Almost all of the great classical philosophers, certainly Plato, Aristotle, Descartes, Leibniz, Spinoza, Kant, Hegel, Locke, and Berkeley, saw the origin of the universe as being in a transcendent, as lying in a transcendent reality. They had different specific ideas of this reality and different ways of approaching it, but that the universe is not self-explanatory and that it requires some explanation beyond itself was something they accepted as fairly obvious. If you've asked yourself this question, how do we get here? What put this all into play? Well, you might just be a philosopher too. You may not have thought about yourself that way, but you might be many philosophers, right? It's okay to ask why. It's okay to ask how, because it makes sense. If I show you this music stand right here, and I say, how did that get there? You wouldn't say, that's such a silly question to ask. It would make sense. Why? Because at some point, it didn't exist. So to ask how it now exists is a perfectly logical question. Scientists have shown us that the universe had a beginning. It is not eternal. So it's perfectly rational and logical for us to try and ask the question, how? Anything that begins to exist, anything that's a beginning, has a cause behind it. And so as time grew on, as the philosophy world and the scientific world, and even just those of us who aren't quite as smart as all of them, begin to ask, how did we get here? We also began to ask another question. How is it not that just that we are here, but like, why does it seem like there's so much design built in to the system of the universe? Why does it seem like everything is so precisely fine-tuned or just works so well? Because, see, it's not just that the universe exists, it's that it can sustain life. And that question has opened up so many other windows and has led many people to wonder, is there a transcendent at all? Ira Flatow is a gentleman that is on NPR, and he had the privilege of interviewing a gentleman named Christoph Koch. Christoph is the chief scientific officer of the Allen Institute for Brain Science. And before he interviewed Christoph, Ira wrote these words. He says, your brain has nearly 100 billion neurons. And Christoph compares that complexity to the Amazon rainforest. As there are about as many trees in the Amazon as there are neurons in your brain. Think about what the Amazon looks like for a second. And the roots, and the branches, and the leaves and the vines. All of that can be compared to the tangled network formed between your brain cells. Because many of your neurons are in fact wired to tens of thousands of other neurons. That incredible complex network is packed into a soft 3-pound organ inside your head, making it, as Christoph says, the most complicated object in the known universe. That lives inside of you. And so we ask how, and we ask why. A friend said to me once that one of the things that makes humans different than animals is that we ask why. We want to understand, why are we here? We want to understand how this works. And we ask these deeper questions. And is the reason we ask why because we were designed or created by some transcendent to ask why? Is that one of the reasons we were asked why? We asked this question? I would think so. I think there's a reason why in which humanity is always seeking for answers, always seeking to better understand. Now, everything I've just said, this idea of there being a divine source, and once again, I'm not talking specifically about Christianity, just in a general sense, there being some kind of divine creator, or the fact that, by the fact that the universe exists, and by the fact that it's so beautifully designed for life, is a belief that you will find in a variety of religions. That's not special to Christianity. You'll find that in Islam, you'll find that in Greek mythology, right? This idea of there being something behind it all. Not unique to Christianity. So I didn't really answer our question for us. I didn't answer the why Christianity question. And so what I want to do now is explain to you several reasons why I think Christianity is unique. Ways in which Christianity deals with some of these big questions in life, like how did you get here? How do you live while you're here? Why are we here? The human condition within us. See, I hear people say to me all the time, you know what, Alicia, all people actually are just worshiping the same God. Because see, it's just like we're all going up a mountain. And so some people may take a straight line to go up a mountain. Some people may take a crooked line to go up a mountain. Some people may go forward and back. We may have different pathways, but we're all trying to reach that top of the mountain where God is. So therefore, we all are just doing this, believing in the same God. Well, I think that there is a sense in which, I think we all are on the same search. But my question has always been, but which God is at the top? Because in Hinduism, they'll tell you that there's millions of gods that are at the top. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam will say one. But even those three differ on the definition of what that one God looks like. Christianity will describe him as Trinitarian. Islam as Unitarian. So really, religions really aren't all the same. They teach very different things, even down to the very idea of the being itself. And so what makes Christianity unique for me? Why Christianity over other religions? Well, I'll give you the short answer, and then I'll expound on them. Number one, I think the more that I've dug into Christianity, the more it is demonstrated to me that it is true. The more I read the Bible, the more amazed I am at the wisdom of God. And the more I study about God, the more I realize how perfect in every way God is. In other words, I've grown in the confidence of the Christian faith more and more as I've gone through my life. And so I want to take a look at some particular things that, for me, tell me why Christianity over different belief systems. And one of them being the idea of morality. Now, a lot of religions will have a moral code. So range of, from Sikhism to Jainism to Buddhism to Islam, they have a range of different ways in which we should live. Some say a prophet gives us wisdom. Some say it's a sage. Some say it's a particular text or manual. But we all the major religions have ways in which we believe that we should live. So one religion may say, this is a good thing to do because this text says it. Another religion may say, well, this is a good thing to do because the divine God being or a prophet said it. And the same thing about evil. This is a bad thing to do because that being said don't do it, so that's evil. But what I find different about Christianity when it comes to how we should live is Christianity isn't just saying, God saying, hey, you should do this because this is good. You should do this because this is bad. In other words, he's not just saying, hey, it's 2017. Forgiveness should be good this year. Oh, it's 2018. Forgiveness should be occasional this year. See, if we don't understand the source of the morality, then we'll always wonder whether or not something is truly right and wrong, or is it just right or wrong for 2017, right or wrong for 2018. And so if we have a God who is just telling us, hey, this is good and do it, we don't know whether or not it's actually good. He's just saying it, but that doesn't mean it's actually a good thing. He's just telling us. How can we trust that what he's saying is actually genuinely good? Well, Christianity will say the way in which we can know that it's genuinely good is because in Christianity, goodness and morality are grounded within the nature and essence of a perfectly good being himself. In other words, God doesn't just say, hey, you should forgive. Hey, you should extend grace. Hey, you should extend mercy because he just decided we should do that. But because these are characteristics and attributes of him. So within Christianity, anything that's good, we can know it actually is a good thing because of its relationship to a perfectly good being. In other words, love is good not just because God says it, but because God is love itself. And that is something that is very different than other belief systems, where we ground morality within the very nature of the being, the perfectly good being. In addition to all that, what he does is he lays a bit of that sense of right and wrong within the hearts of all of his human creation. And now we may choose to follow it or suppress it or ignore it or whatever, but he lays it within us. Now, that is a big reason for me as to why Christianity. But there are others, and maybe I can personalize this a little bit more. I think that when we know the Creator, it changes the way in which we experience creation. It changes the way in which we experience and see the world around us. Let me give you an example of that. I was speaking to a friend of mine who is an atheist. He is a philosophy professor. And I had said to him, has there ever been a time in your life in which you wish there was a God? And he said, you know what? No, there's never been a time in my life in where I wish that there was a God or anything like that. And he said, but you know what? There have been times in my life when I've been struck by the beauty of creation and been sorry that there was no one to thank. And I remember hearing him say that, and that just being such a profound statement. What essentially he's saying is that, you know what? I love nature. I love this world. And in some way, I want to connect. I want to say thank you. It brings out of me a response when I see a sunset, to want to offer a thanks to the being that made it. But I'm an atheist. I don't believe in a being. So there's no one that I have to thank. And it makes sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense that the beauty of an object is closely tied in with its creator, because art is an extension of the creator. And you have actually probably experienced this. Imagine you went to an art museum and you see a beautiful painting. What's the first thing you say? Who is the painter? Right? You want to know. Why? Because part of your experience of fully appreciating this piece of art is in knowing who the artist is behind it. Take a look at this picture. If I was to show you this picture and say, okay, I'm going to charge you $200 for this picture, you would probably say, Alicia, you might want to go back to the South. That's how they do things there, maybe, but not up here. But what if I was to tell you a little bit more about this picture? And say, you know what? This picture was drawn by an 8-year-old girl. She grew up in a war-torn country. And she was playing outside with her friends. While she was playing outside, she stepped on a landmine, and she lost her arm. This picture is the first picture she has drawn with her new prosthetic arm. Now does it change how you see this picture? Now would you consider paying money for it? Now does it seem more beautiful to you? Before it just looked like scribbles. But now you see something deeper there. Why is that? Because I helped you to know who the author is. And when you know that author, you then respond to and look at the artwork in a much different way. Now, it doesn't always mean that you'll think you'll think of the artwork as better or more beautiful. I mean, it could be a horrible, painful story behind this. And that would make you say, I don't even want to see that picture. But the point is that when you know the author, you respond differently to the artwork. That's the point. And so as I look at every one of you, if I know your creator, I will respond better to his creation. If I know the creator, it will help me to see you in a different way. It helped me to see you as beautiful, as precious, as valuable. Because that's the way the Creator sees every one of you. Christianity says something really interesting about humanity. It says that people are created in what's called the image of God. In other words, and we are created to have aspects of the being who created us. In other words, look at a picture like this. If you ever, or any other picture of maybe a famous painting, you can walk up to it and say, oh, I don't even need to know who the author is. I already can tell by the artwork. In other words, the artist's work and its design is reflected in its piece. And so if I have a view of you that matches with your creator, that's going to change the way. And he says you're beautiful. He says you're worthy and valuable. That's going to change the way in which I interact with you. And this idea of being created in the image of God is unique to just the Judeo-Christian worldview. Other religions don't have this. This is why if you were to travel around the world or even encounter or speak with a friend who is of a different religious system, there will be different social stratuses within that system. Some people are more valuable than others in those religions. Because not everybody is equal. But Christianity says that we are. And I think this is why my friend struggled. Although he says he never wanted a God, I think this is why he struggled with fully appreciating creation and nature, was because he didn't know the designer behind the design. And so there was a piece of it that was missing. That last bit of connection, that last step, that last piece of the puzzle to have the whole thing be complete, he was lacking. And it made him feel a little bit without something. So this idea of beauty, this idea of morality, of design, all helped me to see Christianity as unique in comparison to other belief systems. But I travel a lot. And I encounter a lot of people who are hurting, who feel very broken inside, who've had to deal with sorrow and grief. I turn on the news and I see what's going on in the world. And my heart breaks, and I know other people's heart breaks. You know, we're tired of seeing so much grief, tired of seeing so much pain. And this whole human condition we have, this natural tendency we have to want to make things better, to want to fix things. It's not unique to us. We're not the only people that have wanted to help other people. It's something that people for centuries have felt the same way about. The French playwright Eugene Ionesco, and I don't even know if this man was religious or not, but he wrote something very interesting. He said, in the history of humanity, there are no civilizations or cultures which fail to manifest in one or 1,000 ways this need for an absolute that is called heaven. Freedom, a miracle, a lost paradise to be regained. Peace, the going beyond history. There is no era which fails to express the need for man to be transfigured. The new man, the superior man, the superman. Or which fails to express the desire for revolution, for the ideal city. That is to say, the desire to purify the world, to change it, to save it, to reintegrate it metaphysically. Humanity has never been satisfied with reality such as it is. There's no religion in which everyday life is not considered a prison. We have a desire for, as the Miss America answer, world peace, right? We have a desire for world peace. We desire for the environment to work. We desire for poverty to end. We desire for starvation to end. We desire for education for people. We desire all of these good things to happen. And that's not just us. That's humanity for centuries. We recognize that something is wrong here. This is not the way things should be, and we need to fix them. We need to make them better. We have a natural striving to make things better, make things work. Why is that? Why is it that we're not just okay with how things are? Is it because there's a sense within us that makes us say, or makes us long for a better world, a better place, that makes us in some way want to escape, to go to a place that actually has none of these tears, has none of this pain? Oftentimes people will do this by putting on a song. Maybe if you're having a really bad day, you put on a certain song, and that physical song somehow takes you into some kind of like non-physical kind of feeling or emotion or experience, and you feel like things are better. There's a sense in which we look to find ways in which we can be made better. We all hurt. We all hurt, and we all go through something. And so we look for answers. We look for joy. We look for solutions. And we look for hope. Because without hope, it makes it very hard to go through anything in life. There's a film that came out, and it has a really interesting scene where there's this man who goes to a doctor, and he says, "Doctor, doctor, doctor, I'm not doing well. I'm depressed. I feel alone. Life is so cruel. I need your help. Please help me." And the doctor says, "Relax. The great clown Pagliacci's in town. Don't worry about it. You just need to go hear Pagliacci. He's going to make you laugh. He'll make you have a good time, and you'll forget about everything you're going through." And the man says, "But doctor, I am the clown." Where do we go? When we've exhausted all of our resources, where nothing anybody says to us can bring any more healing, where we can't convince ourselves of going on anymore. If you talk to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, they will tell you that there's two sure signs of that someone's at the point of suicide is this feeling of helplessness and a feeling of hopelessness. When someone feels helpless and hopeless, they feel like just giving up. Is there a hope? And I would say within Christianity, yes, there is. You never have to feel helpless and hopeless. There is a hope. And the way Christianity describes hope is very different than I think sometimes we just use in our common vernacular. So if I'm having a birthday party next week, I'm like, "Oh, I hope you can come." But the way Christianity talks about hope is in a bigger sense. It talks about a guarantee of something that is to come, a guarantee of a future event that cannot be changed or altered by anything that happens here, or altered by any sudden bomb, or altered by any mistreatment of somebody else. It's a guarantee of a better world and a better place where people who serve God here will be reunited with their God. And there won't be any more tears and no more pain. See, here we live in a world in which there is so much grief and so much hurt. But yet we know that we are here to experience God, experience the beautiful world around us, to enjoy God, to carry out the different things that He has for us to do here on this earth. But this earth is also painfully different from the earth we were intended to live in. This is not how we were intended to be. And this broken relationship with our Creator is something we long for. The creation longs for the Creator, the artwork for the artist, the design for the designer, because only the designer and the artist and the Creator can fix His creation. And that hope within Christianity, that guarantee is huge and has the ability to overcome the way in which we feel so overwhelmed with life. I'll give you a quick illustration of this. Let's say, after here, I've got to head back to Boston and head back to the airport to go down to the land of the tigers. And we all know when you get in your car, there's a chance of getting in a car accident. So what do? We put on our seatbelt. Okay? We know that when there's a chance or a possibility of something happening, we make minor or small changes to our life to adapt. But what if I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that if I got in my car, I would definitely get in a car accident and die? Would I then get in my car and put on my seatbelt? Or would I not get in my car at all? In other words, a guarantee overhauls the way in which I daily function. It changes the way in which I live. So I'm not even going to get in that car if there's a guarantee that something's going to happen. And Christianity explains hope in that way. It is a guarantee of that life that is to come. It is a guarantee of that world that is to come. And that will overhaul the way in which you process and deal with life here. The way you deal with pain, the way you deal with grief, the way you deal with sorrow, the way you deal with loneliness and sadness. Because it tells us no matter how horrible and painful this life can be, it will never, ever erase what is to come. It doesn't mean that when you become a Christian, everything is great and, all happy, happy, joy, joy all the time, and it's just, beautiful stars and balloons and all that kind of stuff all the time. No, it's not. But it does mean that in the midst of pain, there is always hope. And that will change the way in which you experience life. Because the reality, friends, is what else is there? What else is left for somebody to hold on to when they feel so at the end of their strength and so weak, but a promise that they will one day smile again? Christianity offers us a way to live our lives that we can trust because it's grounded in a perfectly good source. It offers a way for us to deal with this desire to connect even deeper with beauty and experience beauty and creation and humanity in a different way. It deals with the hurts and the pains by offering us a solution. But it also offers this last point, which I find to be kind of the nail in the coffin for Christianity over another belief system. And it's this idea of love. Now, many different belief systems will have a God who is loving. This is not unique to Christianity, okay? A Muslim will tell you that God is loving, and you will find that in other belief systems. But what Christianity does is Christianity says, you know what? God is personal. And if he's personal, then he can't just say he's love. A personal being shows love. What makes Christianity different than other belief systems is that only in Christianity does God demonstrate his love through his actions. And not just any action, but the greatest way in which love can be demonstrated, and that's through self-sacrifice. If I was to say to any one of you, what's the greatest ethic, you'd probably say love. If I would say, what's the greatest way in which you can show love, you would say, well, through self-sacrifice, giving my life for somebody else. If you're a parent, you already completely understand this concept, okay? That's why you see parents who have children who are suffering from cancer or other kind of diseases, and they say, man, God, just give me the cancer. I wish I could take it. Take me instead. Don't take my child. It's a demonstration of their love for that child. In fact, Jesus himself says this. No greater love does anybody have than they lay down their life for a friend. The greatest way in which we can show love is through giving our life for somebody else. When I was in high school, leading up into my junior year, we had just started summer break. We were maybe like 2 days into summer break. And some kids from my school had decided, hey, well, it's summertime. Let's go to this popular place where it's like a bridge over a canal. And they would jump from the bridge into the canal and then climb back up the bridge and jump again and do this kind of thing over and over and over again. So about 10 of them decided to go up there. While they were up there this particular time, a bicyclist drove by and was like, what are these guys doing up there? There's a train coming. So he's telling the kids, get off the tracks, because this bridge is train tracks. They're like, get off the tracks, get off the bridge. There's a train coming. So they start to run off. Well, one young lady, she was running off, was wearing those jelly shoes. If some of you remember what those jelly shoes are, they're like these plasticky, rubbery kind of shoes. And it got caught in the train tracks. So she's screaming to her boyfriend, who had already gone off the tracks, come back, help me, help me, help me. And he comes back on the tracks, was able to get her foot out right before the train hits him and her both. It sent him one way, and it sent her another. We had 2 funerals for them, one for her, one for him. And on his casket, my economics teacher wrote something that I never forgot. And he said, legends die many deaths, but a hero dies just one. Legends die many deaths, but a hero dies just one. In other words, a hero dies giving their life for somebody else, because that is the greatest demonstration of love that you can have. And Christianity says that God demonstrates his love for us. And that while we hated him, while we didn't want him, while we didn't want to have anything to do with him, Jesus dies for us. Now that's very profound. Because that means that in Christianity, and only in Christianity, does God demonstrate love in the greatest possible way. And that's through self-sacrifice. And in so doing, he proves that he is perfect, perfectly good, and perfect in every way. Why do I say that? Because if God cannot sacrifice for you, then that means I could give my life for any one of you to show you how much I love you. And I could show love for you then in a greater way than God could show love for you, because he can't sacrifice. I can sacrifice for you and outlove you in comparison to God. That's a problem. If God is so great, then I should never be able to show love in a greater way than he can. That doesn't make him great anymore. It doesn't make him good anymore. And this is a problem that any other belief system outside of Christianity has to face. How is your God perfect if he doesn't sacrifice? How is your God perfect if I can sacrifice for you and show love for you in a greater way than he can? That's a problem with your God. And in Christianity, God says, I'm not going to just say I love you. I'm going to show it. I'm going to demonstrate it for you. So there's only one religion, friends, that tells us where we came from, helps us live life while we're here, deals with our human condition, and gives us a hope for the future. And it also claims a God, Christianity also claims a God that's so morally good that he gives his life for humanity, thereby showing love in the greatest possible way. So why Christianity? I would say because the person of Jesus proves that God is a perfectly good, loving creator whose love for his creation offers us guidance on how to live on this earth, addresses our hurts and pains, and paves a way for us to be reunited with God in the next, which is the ultimate hope of every Christian. So I'm going to leave you with these three thoughts. I don't know what religion or non-religion you may hold, what belief or non-belief you have, but ask yourself these three questions. What are you doing about your religion or lack of religion? Are you pursuing it? Are you seeking? Are you trying to better understand why you believe what you believe in? And if you are doing something about it, is it helping you? Is that religion actually helping you answer the big questions in life, helping you to know how to live, helping you to know how to interact with other people? Is it helping you to know how to deal with your loneliness and your depression? If not, what should you do differently? What should you do differently? If it's not answering those questions, maybe it's worth looking into something else. Maybe it's worth considering some of the things that we talked about today. Considering getting to know a God who says, look, I'm not just going to use words. I'm just going to say I love you. But I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to show you a concept that is completely blasphemous in Islam. How dare you say that God would come to us? We're dirty. We're broken. God is perfect. He could never come here. And Christianity says, actually, that's exactly what he does. And he does it because we can keep climbing up that mountain and take whatever pathway we want to take, friends, but we'll never get there. And so he comes down that mountain to us. In Christianity, it's the opposite. It's that he looks at every one of us and says, I love you so much, and I want you, because I know you're craving it, to be back in relationship with me. You don't have to try and earn it. Stop trying to do all these good things to get there, because you won't get there. Good things are good, and that's what God wants us to do. But you can never do enough good things to get up that mountain. And so he says, look, receive what I have. You want to come to know me? What makes somebody a Christian is just someone who simply says, you know what? God, I've messed up. I can't seem to get my life together, and there's no way I can get myself back to you, back to relationship with God. The thing that I want the most, I can't seem to make happen. And that's to be close to you again. So God says, guess what? I've already solved that problem. And he says, yeah, you've done things wrong, and I have to punish those things. Because if he doesn't punish, he's not just. If he's not just, then he's not good. If he's not good, he's not really God, is he? So either we pay the penalty, and either he punishes us, or he steps in and says, I'll take the punishment for them. That's the whole point of the cross in Christianity, is God saying, I will punish what has been done wrong, but I will take the punishment instead of giving it to those that I love. In the same way that a parent would love to step in and take a punishment for a child because their love for them is so great. A Christian is just somebody who says, okay, thank you for doing that for me. Thank you for dying and paying that price for me so that now I can be forgiven. And that relationship that I covet can now be possible. So I don't know if you've ever considered Christianity before, or if there's something maybe in this message or that you've been thinking about that makes you say, you know what, I think I'm ready to do this. I think I'm ready to be a Christian. If that's you, we're going to have in a few minutes a prayer team come up here, and I would encourage you to come up and say, you know what, I think I'm ready to be a Christian. I think I'm ready to do this. Maybe you're someone who has said, you know what, I just have a lot of questions still. This is really interesting, but I just have more things I need to ask. Come on up and ask your questions to the prayer team. Or maybe you're someone who was like me, who doubted this whole thing. Said, this is just silliness. And you're left with shame. Like, I was a Christian, and now I'm doubting. I'm questioning. God has got to hate me right now. Let me tell you something, friends. He doesn't. He's not surprised. And he doesn't want you to live in shame. It is good to ask questions because you need to know why you believe. You need to know why you love. And there are answers to those questions. So if you're someone like me who said, I don't know about this, I'm questioning, I'm doubting everything, come ask the prayer team. It's okay to ask questions. There's a beautiful verse in the Bible that says that we are to love the Lord with all of our heart, our soul, our strength, and our mind. And asking questions is a part of loving him with your mind. It's okay to engage with him in that way. So if any of those three things apply to you, someone who's saying, yeah, I think I want to be a Christian, or someone who's saying I have more questions before I become a Christian, or someone who says I'm a Christian but I'm doubting, please come up in a few minutes when the prayer team comes. They would love to pray with you. Thank you all.